The Home Ministry of India has announced on 24th March 2023 that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act will be extended to the states of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. According to two separate notifications, the decisions have been taken after review of the law and order situation in both the states. The Afspa grants special powers to the armed forces to maintain law and order in the affected areas. The Afspa is one of the most powerful laws in the country, and it gives the military the right to search, detain and even shoot at sight any person suspected of being involved in any anti-national activities. The Act also grants immunity to the military personnel from legal action in case of any excesses that may be committed in the course of their duty. The government has made it clear that the Afspa will be exercised with utmost care and responsibility and will not be used as a tool to suppress the rights of the citizens of the two states, that is Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. The government has also set up a committee to monitor the implementation of the Act and to ensure that it is exercised with caution and responsibility. So today, to talk more on this topic, I'm being joined by our senior news analyst, El Nguli, live from the newsroom. Hi, El. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Naomi.
El, to start off with the extension of the Afspa in the two states, it is seen that it is seen as a step in the right direction and is seen as a major step in restoring peace and stability in the region. And El, the government is hopeful that with the extension of the Act, the security situation in the two states, that is Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh, will improve drastically. So if we have to look back in the history and analyze the situation today, how far has this Act helped in restoring peace in the state?
Yeah, Naomi, I think my answer in this regard would have two aspects of it. First, there is the aspect of enforcement, and second, that is the aspect of what people call generational peace or convenient peace. So we'll talk about the first one, enforcement peace. That is during the times, especially in the 70s and then the 80s and of course 90s, that is pre-ceasefire 1997, the Afspa was something that was not only hated in the media, in the courts, but it was hated by the community because the consequences of this act was being seen with your own eyes, actually. There was time when military personnel used to just barge into people's houses just like that because they suspected the people of those houses to be underground people. So based on the mere suspicion that they might belong to one of the underground groups, they used to raid those houses, and it could come at any point of time. So the enforcement side of it is that I think the government of India is more aware of the blood that the Indian military has on its hands. So recently, when the Russia and Ukraine war broke out, the Prime Minister of India said that this is not an age of wars. This is no more the age of war. So I think the reality of the Afspa in relation to the peace that the people want is not necessarily in not implementing the law, but implementing the law by taking into account the consequences of military action. That if at all this law should be implemented, it should be within the framework of enforcement of peace, not enforcement of the provisions of the act itself, which means being a little more responsible, being a little more sensitive to the lives of the people, and being a little more sensitive to the general consensus that this law itself is evil. So they're more aware of it in that sense. So we have to compare the times before the ceasefire and the times after the ceasefire. So repealing the law in that regard is good in that sense that the military excesses that we experienced those days is not as numerous as it used to be. these days. That is one. That is the enforcement aspect of it, and and the second aspect of it is what we call generational peace. Since the ceasefire in August 1997, the consensus of the people in regard to what it means to be a law-abiding citizen and what it means even for the military establishments to enforce law, the concept has changed a lot. So over the years, since the 1997 ceasefire, people are more aware of their rights. And based on that, the governments have been pushing for more responsible implementation of the Afspa, which means the peace that we are seeing now, the comparative peace we are seeing now, is not the result of the law itself, but of the various causes and effects that was brought in by the ceasefire. So which means the underground cadres are a little more sensitive to the plight of the people. And then the government is also a little more sensitive to the issues facing the people when it comes to law and order. So these are interchangeable, but also offering the same benefits of not having the law or even having the law. If there is a law in the first place, then the center has ensured or at least given a statement in this regard saying that we are going to implement this law more carefully, more responsibly than the way we used to. We will be more sensitive to the cries of the people. We will take care of their rights, and it won't be infringed upon. That's what the center said today also. So here the idea is not necessarily about whether it's good or bad. It's more about how responsibly the government of India will be implementing this law so that there wouldn't be any consequences from the other side of the fence. The people who are being governed by the law are the most affected by it. Those days, it was very common for all of us. Even I, there was a time I wanted to join the undergrounds because you know what, we got really badly beaten up by the Indian military, or more specifically, the Assam Rifles. It was not uncommon to get beaten up by the Assam Rifles those days, and of course we also suffered in the hands of the underground people too, especially during elections. So when you are young, you take any cause of grievance. It could just be anything big or small. If you're angry, you want to get back at them. So the Afspa has been one of the biggest reasons why youth in the Northeast have joined the revolutionary movement. This has been the reason, and I know a lot of people who also joined the Assam Rifles and Indian military forces because they were harassed by the Naga undergrounds also. So it goes both ways, not one way. So the two aspects of responsible implementation and of course the generational consequences of having a government that speaks for the people have worked both ways to actually make times a little easier for us. I wouldn't say it's the best of times, but a little easier for us if you take into consideration how the Afspa used to be those days and how the Afspa is these days.
All right, Al, and recently Union Minister Amit Shah said that Afspa will be removed permanently in Nagaland in 3 to 4 years when he visited Mon in the month of February.
Right.
So what are the further reviews that has been undertaken by the ministry this time?
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious, Naomi, that the government is taking very cautious steps because I think a political leader recently before the elections had pointed out that if the government of India removes the law from the Northeast, you don't know what might happen because there are also a lot of people who would want to take advantage of the lack of military enforcement within the public areas to cause trouble. So what the Home Ministry is doing right now is just, it's a question of taming the dog, You give a little piece of it, a little more of it, another grump, and then you give it a little bit more until the dog is besotted to you. So that's how you tame animals. So it's something like that in the nature. The Home Ministry is not saying we're going to repeal it entirely. Of course, currently I think we have about 15 police station areas in Nagaland in 7 districts that have that are now completely Afspa free. But then what the government is doing is that it just doesn't want to go ahead with complete removal of it because they don't know what to expect. We still have, I think, about 9 to 10, or is it 12 Naga political groups in Nagaland. A lot of factions are there, and these people are armed. That is, again, a question of safety, not only to themselves, but also to the people surrounding, to the people that live within them also. Just recently, we had a shootout in Teleka village in Dimapur. So it seems the ceasefire supervisory board is located right in the heart of Teleka. I've never been there, so I don't know. But by the images and the reports that we have seen, is right in the heart of a populated place. For those are some of the things that the Afspa takes care of. And those are issues that the Nagaland police or local enforcement agencies cannot take care of. That's where the center's word comes in. So first thing, it has said that it will ensure that the rights of the citizens are not infringed upon, and it is going to implement the Afspa more responsibly. And second, it is based on those aspects. The government of India is slowly retracting and repealing the Afspa from certain areas in the state that are considered comparatively peaceful. So that is a sign that, of course, the government of India is acting, but it is also being very cautious. So maybe in the next 3 years or even 2 years, I'm giving it about maybe 1.5 years, because the general elections in India is approaching. And it is very sure that the government of India will certainly try to come up with some kind of a brownie point to be able to tell the voters in India that, hey, because of us, there is peace. And now we are going to do something even better for you, especially for the Northeast. We're going to remove the Afspa from the region totally. So this is not just a political will. This is not just a political question. It is also about a political institution that thrives on the opinions of the people and how they perceive the government. So I believe that it's a good thing that the government is slowly retracting the Afspa from various parts of the state. But right now, I think we'll have to wait for the government to actually remove it completely so that we will truly see whether there is peace in the state or not, Nami.
All right, El. And also talking about the slow process of removing Afspa from Nagaland or even in Arunachal. And there is also this Disturbed Area Act as well. So, El, what is the difference between the two?
Oh yeah, I think most people confuse. Yeah, hello, Nami.
Yes, I
yeah,
can
yeah.
hear you.
I think most people confuse the Afspa and the Disturbed Area Act as one and the same. Actually, they're very distinct and two different legislations here. So I'll make it very simple here. The Afspa is the overlaw that governs the enforcement of anti-insurgency activities in the Northeast region, while the Disturbed Area Act, which is of course a component of the Afspa, but it is something that is used not only in the context of anti-insurgency and armed conflicts within a region. For example, if you read through the legislation in regard to the Disturbed Area Act, you will see that the government can declare any region of the Northeast as disturbed if there is some kind of a problem. It could be political, it could be social, it could even be religious. So it is not confined only to political reasons that the Disturbed Area Act can be enforced in a particular place. But on the other hand, the Afspa is purely anti-insurgency legislation, which means the Afspa will be used against people that are suspected of causing or pushing ideologies or interests that goes against the nation. For example, armed insurgencies, the political conflict that we have been having for the past 70 years. These all come under the enforcement prerogatives of the Afspa. It makes sure that these kind of activities are prevented, which the DAA cannot on its own. On the other hand, if let's say there is a communal clash somewhere in Nagaland, like communities are fighting each other and then villages are fighting each other. So these are law and order problems that are not confined just to political reasons, but also any kind of disturbance that will affect the peace of the community. So that's the first difference. And the second difference between the Afspa and the Disturbed Area Act is this. The Afspa can be ordered by the central government, represented by the governor in the state, while the Disturbed Area Act will have to take the opinions of the ruling dispensation, that is the state. So practically what the governor is doing is that it takes the opinion of the government of Nagaland or any other state government to come at an assessment where they believe that, hey, there is a conflict going on, and without this act being announced to be implemented in these conflict areas, then I think we should just go ahead with it or not go ahead with it. So the opinion of the legislature is taken here before the government can announce the Disturbed Area Act should be implemented within a specific area or region of a state. So first one is the central government represented by the governor. Second is the state government's recommendation that will be given out through the announcement of the governor. So the first is center based. The second one is the state government based.
All right, Del. And is this extension seen as a positive move of the Home Ministry, or do we have any update on how the local population is reacting to this extension this time?
Yeah, I think I'll give a very personal opinion here. So ever since the ceasefire in 1997, I do not believe that people, especially young people, they do not remember what all of us went through during those days. So it is very, very easy for them to get a little bit sensitive if something small happens here and there, So, but then again, those days, if you look at the times, those days, like shops used to be, even in Kohima, Dimapur, Mokokchung, Woka, shops used to be closed by 11:30, 12:30, At most, they used to stay open till 1 or 2. So, and you could not go out in the evenings. You could not go out at night like we do. By God's grace, today we can stay up till morning, roaming around and going to shops. You can see shops open too. But those days, it was not so. You have to come home from school by 2, and if you are seen outside, there was a very high possibility that there would be a shooting going on. The Assam Rifles or the security forces will be out patrolling, looking out for the Naga armed groups, and the Naga armed groups would be hunting the Indian security forces. So those were the situation, the kind of situation that we used to experience those days. But nowadays it is not so. So based on it, the central government has been slowly repealing the Afspa from certain areas of the state, based on the comparative analysis that there is actually peace. Something is actually working out, which is positive for the community as well as for the law enforcement agencies and the government itself. So that is a good report. So definitely it is a very good thing that the Afspa is being removed from certain areas of the state. It is a very good step because first thing, now that the law is being removed from this region, it will create a sense of confidence in the central government, in the state government, that all the comparative peace that they are enjoying were created by the government itself, by the actions and statements of the government itself. So that is definitely a very good sign, and so far the government has instated a committee that will, and it is still there, and I think consultations are still going on that very soon the entire law will be repealed, not only from Nagaland but from Arunachal Pradesh also, and Assam, and of course Nagaland. So definitely it's a very good step, and frankly, I'm not surprised that the government of India has decided that, hey, we're going to remove the Afspa from the northeast, and especially in Nagaland after more than 70 years now, because elections are nearby. So that's also something very good for us, because that has also forced the government to also try to reassess public opinion by implementing certain actions that will gain their trust. So yes, definitely it's a very good thing, Nami.
All right, El, and on the other side, what are the other steps that the government is taking to ensure that peace and stability in Nagaland and Arunachal is, being taken up?
Oh yeah, right now, since the government of India set up the committee to discuss the repeal of the Afspa from the northeastern states, I think right now the process is still in the consultative stage, right? Of course, there are, like I said, 15 police station areas in Nagaland, in 7 districts from where the law has been repealed. And there are a lot of areas in Dimapur and Kohima and Wokha, and then Mochong, where the Afspa is still in place. But these are all in phases, and we still can't say to what level that the government of India will go to ensuring complete removal of the Afspa. But what we know so far is that this is right now still in the consultative stage, and I think this will continue into at least the next 1.5 years or so before the elections, because that will be a time they'll have to really put back in the back burner all these issues about local enforcement legislation, especially the Afspa. So right now, that's the only detail that we know of.
Okay, El, thank you so much for giving us with the detailed update.
Thank you, Naomi, for having me.